Welcome to the Bold Book of the Day with Dr. Denise Nicholson, a show that is a central hub and safe space for authors to share their stories. The Bold Book with Dr. Denise begins now.
Hello, welcome to Bold Book of the Day. My name is Dr. Denise Nicholson, and this podcast is for anyone looking for inspiration. Today, I have the beautiful Elizabeth Jennings, and she's here to talk about her book, which is so inspiring because a lot of us like to hold on to things, but her book says forgive and let go. Welcome, Elizabeth Jennings.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. I am excited to be here and in front of your audience today.
You know what? I've meant to interview you for a long time. We met almost 2 years ago, and it's been on my mind. So I'm so grateful to have you. I know you're busy, but Dr. Elizabeth, welcome and thank you so much for taking the time to come up here and just chat with our audience. And please tell me a little bit more about you and why did you write this book?
Well, thank you so much. I believe that everything happens at its right timing. And so thank you so much for reaching out when you did. And it's so funny because in life, right, we go through things, and I'm sure your listening audience can definitely relate to when we go through test and trial and just rough patches, right? And the goal is to learn how to be resilient and to kind of keep going. And so I share that bit of tidbit to start off this conversation because that is kind of where I was at when I wrote Forgive and Let That Go. Literally, I wrote this book in 30 days because I was in a very stressed situation and just who I am. I'm a believer, and the Holy Spirit literally spoke to my heart about going through this process. And it was something that was very personal to me, but learning how to forgive. And so what I did is as I lived it, I wrote it. And that became kind of the inspiration. So the book really details, a lot of times we'll hear someone tell us about you need to forgive. It's so important to forgive. Forgiveness is for us, but we really never hear how to do that. And so the book really kind of gives you the 6 steps to be able to do that. And it really talks about how you go through the process, how you're able to even start the journey. How do you mentally, emotionally let go? And then what that next part of you will look like once you've kind of let go of it. And so that is where the motivation and fuel for getting this book out. And literally, when I was obedient and I wrote this, so many doors opened in my life, not just personally, but in regards to business, in regards to opportunities. It was like that was the blockage that was still there that allowed so much other things to be able to be free to flow through. And that's kind of the theme of this book, is finding freedom to be able to find your voice, to be able to heal, to be able to truly live your life and live your truth from a place of honesty, being authentic, and then just being lighter, right?
Yes,
That's
yes,
where that
yes.
kind of came from.
You said so many things a while ago, but one of the things I just will hold on to, and because I strongly believe in just forgiving yourself and forgiving the people that have harmed you, you said when you let it go, then so many doors opened for you.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I want people to take away from today. If you take nothing else, remember that when you decide to let it go and go through the 6 steps that we're going to share with you today, it will only be a catalyst for your success. You just let go and then God will take on the rest, honey. So let go and let God. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you talked about rebuilding life from the inside out in your book. Can you explain what that means and why it's so crucial to the healing process?
Yeah, a lot of times when it comes from forgiveness, a lot, and I was that same person. So everything I'm saying, I am guilty of, and it was a learning lesson for me. A lot of times we're waiting for the external apology, or we're waiting for to feel vindicated in what happened to us. And so our vision, our focus initially becomes on that external. And so when we talk about healing from the inside out, it truly starts with us, right? because what we have to do is learn to forgive ourselves for what we might have taken on, for the burden or, the shame, all these extra things that come along with the insult that happened. And so when we're able to really like dig deep and tap into that part, instead of being a victim, we become the one who's kind of actually in control. A lot of times when we think about forgiveness, we're thinking about, well, I don't want to let that person off the line, or I don't want to. So it feels like we're in control when truly we're not, because we're still giving that person the power of the timing of when our healing will start, complete, or where we're at in the journey. But when we turn on the inside and we look at what the action might have done to us, and we start addressing that, then we become the one who's truly in control of dealing, of healing, of working through that, no longer letting that be the termination of when we live, when we move on, when we step out into new opportunities, which is so important. So that's where that learning to heal from the inside out becomes such an important thing when we're along this journey of forgiveness.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. Now, in your experience, what are the biggest barriers that people face when they're trying to forgive and let go?
Yeah, I think for me personally, and what I see a lot, it's pride, it is in shame. I'll go to those two. Pride is, there's something about when we have been when something has impacted us, right? And it is like that, how dare that person, break my trust or violate something or take something so precious, that I have, that I've given them, and what that feels like. And so sometimes it becomes our pride of, what, they had, instead of it being a healing and a more, this is about me and my healing, it becomes that external. And when we deal with pride, it's a no-win situation, because pride always becomes like that saying, pride comes before a fall, right?
Mm-hmm.
Into our ego, and it's coming from a place of the hurt has now become anger, the hurt has now become vengeance, the hurt has now become something that is not a positive for us moving forward. Then it flips the switch in a way, because now we have other things that we're adding on to our pain that we're having to work through. And so I've learned that when we're able to kind of talk and understand and recognize how the ego plays in and what pride looks like, then we're able to realize underneath the pride, there's really hurt. There's really this heart that was violated. And when we get to the root of that, then we're able to come from a place of love and understanding for ourselves and compassion for ourselves instead of anger. So that's the first thing I would share. And then the other side of it is the shame that comes from when we have been violated or something's happened to us, right? There's a lot of shame that we feel for, giving our heart to someone or allowing someone to come into such a sacred space and having that space violated. So we feel shame that we didn't pick the right person, or that we didn't, trust, or that we gave too much too soon. And so when we deal with that shame, there's a lot of guilt that comes underneath that. And so learning how to deal with the shame and the guilt that we feel, and targeting that as opposed to the anger, once again, that it may kind of represent itself. It's like our protective mechanism. When we deal with the shame and the guilt, then that also helps us to be able to see clearly of what this has done to us and what we need to do to be able to help ourselves to move forward.
Well, you said, oh my God, I can keep you here all day, but please walk us through the 6 steps, just in case, there's someone out there and they are holding on to something that they think is so unforgivable. Can you help them by just at least begin to walk through the 6 steps briefly? Because I know it's in depth.
Yes, no, I would love to. So the first thing we usually say when it comes to forgiveness, the first step is to be able to understand and identify what are the areas of your heart or emotions that need to be healed. So it's really like taking that mirror and looking at, kind of what you talked about. Am I dealing with shame? Am I dealing with guilt? Am I dealing with anger? How has this impacted me? And so in the book, there's a process where I'm a coach too. And so we do some deep dive and asking questions that are reflective of what this hurt has done, when we are able to look at what our heart and our emotions look like, right? And so people are able to go through a process of identifying that first. The next thing they do is we usually talk about, what do you do to be able to understand the last time you were truly able to feel forgiveness towards yourself? So once we look at our heart and identify what's going on, we then put the reflection on, when is the last time that we've been able to kind of forgive our own heart and forgive ourselves for what's happened to us. And we allow a deep dive into that, because a lot of times when we think about forgiveness, once again, we're focusing on the other person, and we're not really focusing on, like, when is the last time we've learned or how we had to forgive ourselves and what that process looks like. And so the
Yes.
steps will kind of outline, how do you work on looking at forgiving yourself for what has happened to you. And then the next thing we kind of focus on is developing a forgiving spirit. Because once you've learned to ask the question, like, putting the focus back on you, how do you develop a forgiving spirit? What does that look like? What does forgiveness truly mean? And in that process, because there's awareness, a self-awareness of what it is. We hear this term, but a lot of times no one's really taught us like what it means to truly forgive. And that is actually individualized, meaning forgiveness means different things to different people based on what's happened to them, so that we allow them to kind of personalize that journey. So that's number 3. And then step number 4 is to be able to understand what it is that's been blocking us from forgiving others. So after you've done the work and you've learned to forgive yourself, and you realize what does it mean to truly forgive, then you understand, and now you can look at, now you're finally ready to look at forgiving someone else. Instead of it being us doing that at the very first step, before we've kind of gone through that process of understanding how to forgive ourselves, understanding what has really happened to us, understanding what it truly means. So then you're at number 4, you're going to be able to look at how you forgive someone else. Step 5 is, how do you start the forgiveness process? So once you identify what you need to do to forgive someone else, then we finally go through the process. And that process includes the self-awareness. It includes being able to identify the tools that you need to be able to heal. And then it really looks at, instead of looking at forgiveness as being a one-time thing, it allows you to look at, what is that thing that I want to be able to do that unforgiveness has stopped me from doing? So it really takes the focus off just forgiveness to being living your life and being free, because oftentimes that's what we want. We want the freedom to be able to live our life, to be able to move on, to be able to love again, to be able to trust again. And so you're able to focus on that part, and then that becomes like what you're striving to. And then the last step we usually say is making sure that you learn to balance showing forgiveness and not being taken advantage of in the future. Because once you kind of learn how to forgive, what that looks like, you've forgiven yourself, you've worked on the process of forgiving someone else, you now have a goal and a vision. How do you make sure that you don't get in that same predicament again, that you don't give yourself away so easily, that you don't enter in something that requires trust without really like evaluating the pros and cons and things like that? When you're able to cognitively like understand and have that reasoning, then you're able to like trust yourself with moving forward, instead of moving forward with fear and anxiety about what the future may look like. So those become the process and the steps that we outline in the book in a very like clear, reflective, taking you on a journey. So you kind of work through it. And then by the time you're done, it's like, freedom is my focus. I realize that I can move forward. I can love again. I can, try a new job. I can venture out into this business or write this idea, because now I've gone through the process, and I know I can repeat this process for anyone in my life. So we usually say, when you first go through this process, identify one person that you want to address at one time, go through that process, and then you pick like the next area or the next person that you want to, and you continue this process until you're allowing yourself to be free, one person, one offense at a time.
Wow. Oh my goodness. I love it. And I love how clear the steps are. I'd like to focus a little bit more on, I was taking notes, okay, on balancing your balancing that, you're showing forgiveness, but now you don't want to be taken advantage of. I need a little bit more clarification on that, because I know there's someone listening that they have taken the steps, but they want to have the difference, have the tools so they can have the difference, so that they're not feeling like, oh my God, people just walking over me right now. I'm
Yeah,
forgiving you, and you keep doing the same thing. How
exactly.
can we, give us a little bit more tips on that?
Yeah. So underneath that one, which is and I usually kind of say, like, a lot of times when it comes to forgiveness, like that is such a stuck point for us, right? And so that's why it's so important to break forgiveness down, because oftentimes when you ask them on, like, well, why won't you kind of forgive them? Because I don't want them to do it again, or I don't want this to happen to me again. We become like ultra protective of ourselves, but it's actually like protective in the wrong way, because we still are dealing with so much underneath that protective armor that hasn't been addressed. And so the way to like be proactive about it, I usually kind of say, is you have to stop being a people pleaser. Like oftentimes those of us who have been violated, we are those people pleasers, right? On a positive note, we love serving people, we love like making sure other people are happy, we don't want to like, disrupt things, so we don't speak up. So when we think about the characteristics that may need to be grown, like we can still be who we are, but we do have to like put boundaries in place to be able to support us and help us, so that that characteristics doesn't like become a negative that can hurt us, as opposed to the beauty that comes from that part. So you don't want to change who you are. You just want to be able to identify, you know what, in my history, I have a history of being a people pleaser. So how do I make sure that I'm being respected in my actions, and making sure that I'm being valued for what I give or what I put out? So learning to set those boundaries are really important. The other thing I kind of say is, when you truly, truly learn how to start loving yourself first,
Yes.
then you accept better, and you won't allow things or negativity or people to violate you. So the other thing is learning how to truly start by loving yourself, because then that helps to kind of decrease our need to receive validation or acceptance from someone else, and overdoing things when it's like draining us, because we're seeking approval from that person. And so when you truly learn to kind of love yourself, then you're able to kind of, avoid and identify when that's happening. The other thing I usually kind of talk about is how to develop your inner strength and resilience. A lot of times we depend on other people to lift us up, to kind of, push us along, to kind of, it's okay to have inspiration, but we can't solely depend on someone else to be the one to motivate us, right?
Yeah.
Or, if we fall, to like always have to be there because we're seeking it. And then if they're not, or that person isn't available, if, they are not like accessible, then we're in this pit and we get ourselves dealing with depression and other things. So we have to learn how to develop our own inner strength and resilience, so we're not dealing with that. And the last thing I'll kind of share is the importance of people learning how to protect their own mind and their own emotional and mental space. Meaning you have to be able to limit the negativity that you allow to kind of come into your space. And that may mean, you know what, instead of me engaging in this argument, instead of me engaging in this disruptive behavior environment, I may need to step away, or I may need to walk away instead of being there. Because even if you're not like necessarily actively saying anything, because a lot of times it's the passive aggressiveness that we're feeling, you're still hearing this, you're still feeling this in this
Yeah.
environment. And so when you're able to like allow yourself to say, I have the ability to walk away from this and not like just sit in this, to allow this heaviness, this weight on me, then I now have given myself the control to say, I don't have to take this any longer. And so when you're able to learn to love yourself, when you're able to stop people pleasing others, when you're able to set those boundaries in place, when you're able to be able to understand the power of walking away when it becomes uncomfortable, and by trusting your gut and what's inside, then you kind of take back that power. And that's helping you to balance, to say, if I'm in a situation, I now know what I can do, because a lot of us will just sit there, or will
Mm.
deal with it. And even if it's not an active, like verbal, there's this like environment that is still like
It just
susceptible.
feels tense. It feels
Exactly.
wrong. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I'm just sitting there picturing this scenario.
Yeah.
And even if you don't hear the words, and those are powerful too, get yourself away, because The environment may be tense, but if you are hearing those words are powerful.
Yes.
And hearing one negative word will take you 60 to 70 new positive affirmations just to get rid of that.
Yes, yes. So imagine hearing that repetitively all the time in that space. I mean, it can immobilize us. And so the importance of not letting it go on too long in the future will allow you to have the power to be able to balance what we said, to balance a forgiveness and accepting, what doesn't, you no longer should.
You're amazing. And I really appreciate this because it is so in depth and it's what is needed. As a matter of fact, you talked about a powerful concept of embracing the new you in your book. And it sounds like embracing the new you is embracing number 6 and these 5 steps in number 6. Well, you may have said more, but I have stop being a people pleaser, love yourself, and not seek approval. That's I'm writing real fast. And learn more about your inner strength and your resilience and stepping away. Is there another one that I missed?
No, you're good. Just to talk a little bit about that embracing the new you.
Yes.
In one of the steps, which was step 5, we talked about once you go through the forgiveness process,
Yeah.
and the last part of that forgiveness process is learning to, now that I now that I no longer have this weight on my shoulder of unforgiveness, what is it that I can do now? What is it that I have the freedom to be able to step into that I've always wanted, but that this situation has caused me to not dive into? And so there's so much freedom in being able to dream again, and being able to really, without the limitations of the weight, of really say, what is it that I truly have been wanting and desiring? Is it a relationship? Is it a better, communication with the family member or family members that I've kind of avoided everyone because of one person? Is it actually stepping into a new job or a new career option where I felt stuck because when I tried it one time and something happened, it really knocked me down. So I lost the confidence to say that I can do this again. Is it now writing that book that I want, that has been inside of me to really truly be able to find my voice and share my story? So whatever that might look like to you, the opportunities that have already been inside of you, because a lot of times when we think about what is my purpose or what do I want to do, once again, we're looking on the outside as opposed to diving deep and trusting our gut and really seeing what is this one thing that has been spitting out at me, but it's been dampened because of this weight that's been kind of blocking me and the ability of me to hear what I should be doing. And so to me, that becomes, along with this bold book of the day, it allows us to live bold. It allows us to make those bold decisions for our future that we've been timid about, or that we've been scared, or been dealing with the weight and shame and not being able to step into. And so that is where that embracing the new you, the light truly kind of comes, because that self-reflection now allows you to hear your inner self louder. I say we get to turn up the volume on the inside of us so that we can hear it, and then we're able to exuberate. And it's so funny because when we hear it and we kind of put out that energy and we write down what we want and we start doing affirmations, doors start to open. That's what I shared at the very beginning. Those opportunities, someone will come to us or they'll meet us or we'll have a conversation. They're like, do you know that I went through the same thing, or I have this opportunity? And we walk right into it without the external how to search for those things where we say we don't know how to get there. And so I think that is probably the most beautiful process of this whole forgive and let that go, embracing the new you, because that thing, that weight that we're holding on to is blocking so much that could be put into action without us having to really do the work. Meaning it's a journey, but it doesn't always feel like work. It just feels like us loving ourselves, getting to know ourselves, getting to write down what we truly want. And that becomes a joyful process, as opposed to seriously work. I mean, there is some process, of course, because anything that you have to dig becomes some component, but the journey doesn't always have to be a hard work. It could be a reflective work. It could be a getting to know us work. It could be a, learn to love ourselves type work. And so the connotation of it being negative is what switches whenever we're really in the mode of embracing the new us.
Yeah. And you know what? A lot of times we we want more. We see that there's something in us, and we are hearing that call to do something big. Maybe, maybe it's write a book, maybe it's build a hospital, maybe it's to start a school. Whatever it is, you're hearing that voice, but you don't know what to do because you're holding on to some hurt that someone has done for you. And the minute you start to just focus on you and work on yourself and letting that go, then the next steps start to come.
Yeah.
You're not working as hard to find that purpose. You can see clearly the next steps.
Yeah.
And if you make that your year of yes, after starting to work on yourself, say yes to the things that are coming up, the opportunities. Don't worry about how you're going to do this, or who's going to help me with this. Just start to say yes, and God will open more doors, and more people will come and say, hey, I know someone who can do this. And all of a sudden you're like, really? I've been wanting to do that for years. And all of a sudden someone is coming up as the resource.
Yes, yes. Could I speak on that and with an
Yes,
example?
please.
So, I started kind of sharing about the book, but I'm a very like open and authentic person. And I think the listening audience will understand a little bit more when I share like where I was with my journey,
Yes.
and the blessings that came from it. Because what I also want the audience to understand is when we start to like release forgiveness, and deal with the unforgiveness, it doesn't just impact us, it impacts those that are directly like connected to us. And a prime example, when I was going through that time, there was a situation with my son. My son is now 18 years old, but he was 15 during that time. And he had a really severe mental health crisis. And it really like floored me because I am a parent advocate. I work in the health profession. And, as an occupational therapist, I support. And so I have a family of brothers who had a diagnosis of schizophrenia. And so when my son had this mental health crisis, he went from talking normal to just talking numbers overnight. And
Mm,
so he had to have like 2 severe mental health hospitalizations that lasted from 2 weeks to 3 weeks on both of those. And
yeah.
so that was a very like stressful time for me,
Yeah.
because to be able to help others and to have your own like child and not feel like you're able to help them in the moment because it was kind of out of my hand, that is when I had to like reflect on like what is this about and what am I holding on to. And as I started praying, that's when I got a little bit more clarity on the areas that I needed to release, that I was still holding on, and it had to do with my ex-husband. And so when within that, like I had already thought, I forgive, I'm okay, but there were still some things that I was still holding on to. And I share that because we may have started the process, but there still may be some underlining things that we aren't ready, or aren't able to kind of let go of. And so by being able to really like reflect on that, listen to what was saying, and truly say, okay, I'm ready to let go of this. If my son's healing is attached to whatever I'm holding on to, then I don't want that. And so it was kind of the push that I needed to be able to work through. So as I started like writing this book, and it allowed me to find my voice to advocate better for my son as he was going through his journey. So I pulled him out of school, pulled back from all my jobs and really focused on loving my son from a place of honesty and letting go of anything that might be in the way. And let me tell you, that journey was not easy, but by doing that, by allowing other people into our lives to help me and my son, because I had held on to my children so tightly, but I allowed other mentors from different programs I started to kind of support us. I actually started sharing this journey on social media and allowed the community to be aware of what it was like. And I was hearing people say, you know what, we've dealt with this for so long, but we've never had someone share, what this was like, because it used to be what happens in the house stays in the house. And so you're, opening about your journey. And so that was the work that I had to do. And it was, like I said, it wasn't easy work, but it felt okay because I was just kind of, my motivation was learning to love myself again, but it was also learning to love my children and let them see what this can be like to heal from something that may still be there. Fast forward a year later, my son went from being on like 35 meds to them saying he would probably not be off medication. They initially gave a diagnosis of schizoaffective disorder. He no longer has that diagnosis. He is on no more medication. And me and my son actually wrote a book together about don't quit, and the power of learning how to share your story. So he shared his journey so other teens and young adults now know about mental health, using their voice when they have challenges, and to let you know you can be on the other side. He's a speaker now, who's also encouraging and speaking at his school. He's a senior. And so, when I share about how real this process is to me, and how by going through that journey, by being obedient, by not just writing the book, but living it on a regular basis and letting my son like see that, and then pouring into him along the journey, he now is an author, a speaker, and, on his journey. And so when I say that the pieces kind of come together, and you not only embrace the new you that's in you, but those attached to you, they also will receive the healing and the openness and the love that you're now able to elude through the process that you go through for your own healing.
Wow. That is, oh my goodness, so inspiring to see that you guys can take such a tragic moment, such a traumatic event, and turn it upside down. Now he is not only not taking medication because of the journey, guys, he didn't just stop taking his medication. They didn't just stop, because I want you to be clear on that, because there are a lot of people out there in our community and others that are suffering from schizoaffective disorder, and you can't just stop taking your medication. There is a process, but she went through the process. She reached out to people. As a matter of fact, she was accepting people that were reaching out to her, and started this journey of healing that helped him to now be off of his medication. He was on 35 medication, and it's not unusual for someone with a diagnosis like that to be on so many medications. So that's just a typical, but he was able to turn that around, and now he's an author, a speaker, and he's healthy. He is, living his best life. Oh my goodness. Can he come up here and talk to the young people? Because that's a different audience that you and I can't reach, It's so important for us to give them the stage, let them take center stage also, and share their power and their transformation. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much
Yeah.
for being transparent about that.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like, in part of the advocating for my son, it was making sure that we had a strong team and the right people
Yes.
on our team. And so we had counselors who he still sees. Our psychiatrist was the one who walked us through, and it was time to like let go, because he was like, based on his break, I don't see him not being on medication. So when it was time for him, he finally said, I think we can let go of this last medication. He's in the book too, just because the beauty of him actually recognizing not just the medical side of it, but the holistic. Like, he would always ask about his peers and how he was doing with life and how he was handling things. And I'm so grateful that, like we said, the right people will come into your life because if I would have and this goes back to the whole reason I brought this up is when it comes to unforgiveness. Like, there's things I felt in my past that may have happened with my brothers of not receiving the right services or not being able to get help. And so if I would have kind of hold on to the bitterness that I felt on that end, then there would have been a really level of strong mistrust with the medical profession. And so I had to forgive and let that go, and really see this person as, wherever we were going along this journey from inpatient to outpatient, I had to kind of trust that whoever I was kind of, trusting to make decisions, that this was going to be a part, and that I was going to respect that and not make my own decisions, because it could have been a different ending had I not. But that part of the forgiveness even played in that situation because of past things that I've seen in our history. And a lot of us has had past triggers or situation or family things that we don't really know how much it impact us or how much it guides decisions that we make. And so when I say you go through the cycle and then you repeat and say, what else is still there? It's such an important question, because then you really need to go through that again. And some of that means, going through things that may have been in our past so that we could be better in our future.
We don't understand how important and impactful what we've been through, the people that were in our ears, how impactful they are, our grandmothers, our parents. They have made a significant contribution to how we make decisions.
Yes.
They were in our ear, but they made the decisions based on what resources were available to them, who they were getting the guidance from. And sometimes it was just, maybe a pastor that's not a professional psychiatrist or a psychologist. Maybe it's not even a professional person. They just got advice from the person that seems to be the best uh, person that they can talk to at the time, most available person at the time. So it's so important for us to think about this. Who is in our ear? How come we are making the decisions or thinking the way we are thinking? Because once you start to break it down and to assess it and look at why do we think this way? The best version of themselves. They gave us the best version of themselves. We're getting this when they didn't even understand what is going on. So we are taking advice from people that are not experts in this area. And
Yeah.
of course, you take advice from the experts and your family. You listen and see, you know, why is it important for us to not do this, or why is it important for us to start assessing our young boys at a certain age for mental health disorder, because it runs in the family. So you can listen, of course, listen to your family. It's so important to have family history coupled with the assessment of the experts, but make the decision not just based on your family, but based on the experts. I love that you brought this up, because I know for sure, even in myself and with my family, we listen to the elders a lot. And it's not that we shouldn't listen to the elders, but we have to remember, where are they getting their information from?
Yeah, I think it's important, like you said, to watch and to reflect on who was in our ear and who was in our eyes, because there's
Ooh,
things that we have seen, that others may not have known, or that, and it left an implant, right, on
yeah.
how we're supposed to model behavior. And so by recognizing that and understanding that, that allows us to go back to what you talked to about what are the biggest things that hold us back from being able to forgive. Like, that allows us to release some of the shame and guilt for what we might have, like, done based on what we saw or heard, right? And reflecting on that. And once we're able to identify, hey, that may not have been a way, then embracing a new you allows you to now be able to, let me do a different way. It's never too late to go talk to a professional, a counselor, or someone in the mental health area, if that's your area. It's never too late to really, like, because you may not be able to even recognize, because you may have blocked what is underneath the surface. So when you're able to, like, take the time and say, you know what, no matter what age I am, it's still okay for me to sit with a counselor who might really be able to help me to be able to dive a little bit deeper
Yes.
and pull up why am I so irritable, or why does this trigger me? And I don't know, when I look at my heart and reflect it, that may require, getting a professional to help you with that process. And then, you identify, I really want to learn to forgive, but they will help you kind of connect the dots, so like, what you need to target in your process of forgiveness. Because a lot of times when it comes in, if we go to, like, spiritually, like, it's like, well, I just give it to God. And I hear that, but sometimes that doesn't really, like, connect the direct triggers or the areas that we really, because we haven't really been specific about what it is that we're needing to kind of work on and heal. So it's important to get clarity on those areas if we truly want to see the right results as we move forward.
Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate all of the the insights that you brought, all of the lessons. I've been taking notes, and I'm just grateful that you had everything so streamlined where we can learn from this. So anyone listening to this podcast today can really walk away with tips and tools and actual steps for them to forgive, let go, but not only forgive and let go, but let people into your life. Be transparent, give yourself an opportunity to just grow to the best version of yourself. Thank you so much.
Yes, you're welcome. Thank you.
Before we go, there are just three questions that I love to ask each of my guests. And the first question for you is, what's a bold promise that you can share with the audience?
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for asking. A bro promise that I can share is, I promise to always be authentic and to represent integrity in all that I do.
I love that. I promise to always be authentic and represent. Oh, I love it. I love it. Guys, write this down because these bold promises, you can reflect on your life and see how you can input these into, helping you become the better version of yourself. There's no one else or no better investment than investing in you and your self development. So there's a tip for you right there. Now, what's a bold statement you can share with the audience that will cause a paradigm shift?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say that healing is a lifelong journey, and it's okay to start living your truth before the process is completed.
Healing is a lifelong journey, as it is. Yes. Okay. What's a bold move you'd like to make in the future? You're doing so much. Your son is doing so much. You have this business, this coaching business that is helping so many others. What's next?
Yeah, so thank you for asking that. I would love to open a teen and young adult center to teach our youth and young adults about empowerment, resilience, and how to thrive in life and to overcome setbacks they may have experienced.
Mm, I wish you all the best with all your endeavors, but especially that because it's focusing on the next generation, the future. And that's something I can see your son being a big part of also.
Thank you.
Yes, you are amazing. Please share with our audience how they can connect with you.
Yeah, so I am on social media platforms as Remember You Matter Coaching. Also, if you look up Elizabeth Lee Jennings on Facebook, that is my personal account, but I'm very active there. And then I have a website, www.rememberyoumattercoaching.com. And so me and my kids, I have two kids, and my daughter is 15 also, and she's an author also. We actually just launched an online bookstore. And so we have about 14 resources, whether it's book or workbooks, where we kind of utilize coaching and strategies to help youth and adults with mental empowerment. And so you can go to www.booksaretfire.com, and that is our family online bookstore that we have launched with resources that we're very proud of together. And then also on Amazon, you can also find Forgive and Let That Go. But please check out our Books Are Fire site also.
Because your book is on, of course, in your bookstore.
Yes. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you, guys. You've just had the opportunity to hear from Dr. Elizabeth Jennings, and thank you so much for giving us this hour or a few 45 minutes to listen and learn these steps on forgiveness. And not just she tapped us into a little bit of her son's life and the challenges that he was facing, but also how it impacted her life and the decisions that she needed to make to help him get through this illness and get out on the other side where he's now triumphant, helping others and helping young men around his age and his age group. I'd love to have him come up here and just talk a little bit more about his journey and the process of healing for him. And how is he now? I know you said he's doing great, but I'd like to hear him share with the world how he's doing now. I am so impressed to hear that because I've worked in this area. I'm a nurse practitioner hospitalist, and I've worked in this area where with mental health, and I know it's a struggle and it's hard, and people try for many years to do what he has done. So I'd love to have him up here. But thank you so much for coming and sharing and being so inspiring and being so brilliant. Thank you, and I'm looking forward to having you again. And yes, guys, go out and get the book. It's on her bookstore, booksarefire.com. And you have many different ways to reach out and get in touch with her and be a part of her world. Thank you so much again. What would you like to say to the audience before you go?
Yeah. It's so important to love yourself And forgiveness is part of that process of truly like loving yourself. And so don't let anything stop you from deserving the love that you deserve to have to truly live your life. I want to thank you for having me. This was a beautiful interview and a great way to just be able to have the space to express a topic that's very important to me. And I hope that others see the relevance of going through the process for themselves also. And so I want to thank your listening audience for tuning in and hope they gain some insight. And please reach out if you have any questions.
Yes, guys, if you have an idea or you have a message, you've had this tapping in your ear, little still voice saying you need to write a book. There is someone out there that is waiting for your message. There is someone out there that your message is the hope and inspiration that they need to get to the other side. So if you'd like to write your book, please send me an email at authordnicholson@gmail.com to share what is the message that you would like to share with the world, and we'll take it from there. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us for the Bold Book of the Day with Dr. Denise Nicholson, a central hub and a safe space for authors to share their stories. Follow Dr. Denise on Facebook and Instagram at Denise Nicholson, or go to denisenicholson.com. Remember, no one can share your story better than you.